The battlefield was silent after the storm of war. Smoke curled in the air, rising from the ruins of broken machines and fallen soldiers. The night sky above was red, lit by strange alien fire that refused to die down. The ground smelled of ash and blood. A single human soldier moved between the wreckage. His uniform was torn, his face dirty, and his breathing heavy. His name was Daniel, but at that moment, he felt like just another lost soul among the thousands who had fallen. His squad was gone, his weapon was broken, his hope thin as a thread. Every sound made him tense, a crack of metal, a faint growl in the distance. He knew the enemy was near. The aliens never left survivors, never spared anyone. Stories spread among soldiers that the aliens were not only stronger, but they enjoyed the hunt. To be caught alone was a death sentence. Daniel pressed his back against a ruined wall, clutching a shard of metal as if it were a weapon. His heart hammered in his chest. He whispered to himself, "Stay alive. Just stay alive." Then he heard it. Heavy footsteps. Not one pair, not two, but one steady and powerful, as if the earth itself made way for whoever approached. From the smoke she appeared, the alien warrior. Her figure was tall, towering over him by more than a head. Her armor was dark and scarred from countless battles, glowing with strange lines of alien technology. Her face was partly hidden under a sharp helmet, but her eyes, those piercing golden eyes, shone through the shadows. Every soldier knew her name, though no one dared to speak it aloud. She was their nightmare, their demon in the dark. Daniel froze. His hand tightened on the metal shard. He knew it was useless. If she wanted, she could end him with one strike. She walked closer, silent except for the echo of her steps. She stopped only a few feet away, staring down at him. Daniel raised the shard weakly, but his voice cracked. "Stay back." Her eyes narrowed. Slowly, she lifted her weapon, a long blade that hummed with deadly energy. The air seemed to shake around it. One swing, and he would be gone. He should have begged. He should have run. But instead, words escaped his mouth before he could stop them. "You're beautiful." The alien warrior froze. Her weapon hovered in the air, inches from his chest. She tilted her head, studying him as though he had just spoken in a language unknown to her. No one had ever dared to say that to her, not an enemy, not even her own people. To them, she was a tool, a weapon, a war machine. But to this weak, trembling human, she was something else. She stepped closer, her shadow covering him. Her voice, when it came, was low and sharp, like steel sliding across stone. "Why do you call me beautiful, human?" The question struck Daniel harder than any blade. His breath caught. He hadn't planned to speak. The words had simply fallen out. Now his life depended on the answer. But before he could reply, she lowered her weapon slightly. Not all the way, just enough to show she was curious. Curious why a dying man facing death itself would dare to call the most feared warrior in the galaxy beautiful. The silence between them grew heavy. The battlefield around them was forgotten. For the first time, Daniel looked into her eyes. Not as a soldier facing an enemy, but as a man seeing someone who carried pain behind the mask of war. Her people feared her. Her enemies cursed her. But Daniel had seen something else in that single moment. And though he had no idea why, he felt that this encounter was not the end of his life, but the beginning of something far more dangerous. The alien warrior leaned closer, her golden eyes burning into his. "Answer me, human," she whispered, her voice both threat and command. "Why do you call me beautiful?" Daniel swallowed hard. His hand trembled, but he did not drop the shard. He found his voice, though it was weak. "Because it's the truth." For a moment, neither moved. The warrior's blade still glowed. Her armor still hummed with power, but something in her gaze shifted. Not mercy, not kindness. Something else. Something she didn't even understand herself. A strange, dangerous silence fell over them. The battlefield had brought them together, as enemies, but that single question, and that single answer, had opened a door that neither of them could close. And somewhere, deep inside her chest, the alien warrior felt something she had never felt before. Not anger, not victory. Something far more dangerous. Prisoner or guest? The night grew darker as the battlefield's fires dimmed, but Daniel's fear only burned brighter. He was alive, yet he did not understand why. The alien warrior had lowered her blade, but she had not left him. Instead, she stared at him in silence as though weighing a choice only she could make. At last she spoke. "You will come with me." Her voice was sharp, a command that carried no room for refusal. Daniel blinked in disbelief. Prisoner. He was going to be her prisoner. That was better than death, wasn't it? He didn't argue. His body was too weak and his mind too stunned. When she motioned for him to move, he obeyed. Each step felt heavier than the last as they walked through the broken battlefield. Her presence was terrifying. Even without her weapon raised, Daniel felt the weight of her power. She did not walk like a soldier. She walked like something greater, something untouchable. Around her, the shadows seemed to shrink back. The alien warrior led him beyond the ruins, through hidden paths that only her kind seemed to know. At the edge of the battlefield he saw it, her transport. It was no ordinary ship. Its dark surface shimmered like liquid metal, alive and breathing, pulsing with a strange rhythm. It felt less like a machine and more like a creature. When the vessel opened, Daniel's heart raced. The inside glowed with dim blue light and alien symbols crawled across the walls like living tattoos. It was beautiful and horrifying. She pushed him forward, and he stepped inside. The air inside the ship was colder, thicker, as if the atmosphere itself knew he didn't belong there. As the ship rose into the sky, Daniel looked through the window. The battlefield grew smaller beneath them, fading into smoke and shadows. He wondered if this was the last time he'd ever see his world from above. The ship landed deep within alien territory, into a fortress carved into stone cliffs, surrounded by strange glowing plants that pulsed with light like beating hearts. The walls of the fortress stretched high into the black sky, guarded by warriors clad in the same dark armor as hers. The moment Daniel stepped out of the ship, silence fell. Every alien eye turned toward him. Their gazes were sharp, filled with hate and hunger. Whispers began to spread like fire through the crowd. A human. Alive. In chains of no chains. They stared not at Daniel, but at the warrior who brought him. Some looked fearful. Others looked angry. A few even reached for their weapons, but stopped when her golden eyes swept over them. No one dared to question her openly. Not yet. Daniel felt their hatred like knives against his skin. He wanted to run, to hide, but the alien warrior's hand pressed against his back, guiding him forward. Her touch was not gentle. It was control. Inside the fortress, the atmosphere grew heavier. Strange glowing flames lit the hallways, and the walls were carved with battle scenes. Warriors striking down humans, worlds burning under alien fire. Daniel's stomach twisted. He was walking into the heart of his enemy's pride, their history, their strength, and yet no one stopped him, because no one dared to stop her. At last, she brought him into a chamber. It was vast, with a high ceiling and sharp metal structures hanging like claws. At the center stood a long stone table surrounded by alien leaders. Their armor was brighter, cleaner, symbols of rank shining on their chests. The moment Daniel stepped into the chamber, voices rose in anger. "What is this?" one demanded. "You bring a human here?" another shouted. "He should be dead." The alien warrior did not flinch. Her voice cut through their noise like a blade. "He is mine." The room went silent. The words were simple, but her tone left. No space for challenge. One of the leaders leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Yours? Since when does our greatest warrior take trophies?" Daniel felt his blood freeze. He was not a man anymore. He was a trophy? But she stepped closer to the table, her presence overwhelming even the leaders. He is not a trophy. He is alive because I chose it. Question my choice, and you question me. The chamber grew tense. No one moved. No one spoke. Finally, the leader leaned back, his lips curling into something like a smile. Keep your pet then. But remember this. Our people do not forgive weakness. One day, he will be your ruin. The warrior's eyes glowed with quiet fury, but she said nothing more. Instead, she turned, pushing Daniel toward a smaller chamber. Inside, Daniel collapsed onto the floor. His body ached. His mind raced. He couldn't understand what was happening. Why was he alive? Why had she protected him from her own kind? The alien warrior stood in the doorway, her gaze locked on him. You are not safe here, she said, her voice low. Do not speak unless I allow it. Do not move unless I command it. Understand? Daniel nodded quickly. Yes. She stepped, closer, kneeling so her golden eyes were level with his. For a moment he forgot to breathe. Do not mistake this for kindness, human, she whispered. I saved you, but I do not yet know why. Her words were cold, but her eyes betrayed something else, something Daniel could not name. Before he could reply, she rose and left the chamber, the door sliding shut behind her with a heavy thud. Alone in the dark, Daniel lay on the floor, staring at the strange, glowing symbols etched into the walls. His heart still raced, but another feeling began to creep into him. Curiosity. Who was she really? Why did she spare him? And most of all, what did she mean by not safe? Daniel didn't know the answer. But one thing was certain. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to the alien warrior who had chosen him, and outside his chamber door, whispers spread like fire among the aliens. She protects a human. She breaks the old ways. She will bring ruin. Suspense grew in the shadows. Something was beginning, something dangerous. The mass cracks, the fortress never slept. Outside Daniel's chamber, footsteps echoed endlessly. Guards marched. Strange, alien voices whispered in the halls. Sometimes he heard roars, whether from beasts or soldiers, he didn't know. Days blurred. Together, though, day was a strange word in this world. The sky never truly brightened. Instead, it glowed faintly with strange, shifting colors, like the inside of a storm. Daniel had no idea if hours or weeks had passed since the battlefield. The alien warrior did not return often, but when she did, the guards fell silent. Even the leaders lowered their eyes. She was feared, not only by her enemies, but also by her own kind. Yet Daniel noticed something others seemed blind to. Every time she entered his chamber, she hesitated. It was never long, just a heartbeat, but it was there. A pause, like a mask slipping for the smallest moment before she locked herself in steel again. One night, Daniel couldn't sleep. His body was weak, but his mind refused rest. He kept thinking about the question she had asked him on the battlefield. Why do you call me beautiful? He didn't even know the answer himself, but he knew one thing. Something about her didn't match the monster his people had described. So when the door opened that night, and her tall figure stepped inside, Daniel found himself whispering, "Why me? Why did you spare me?" She froze in the doorway. Her golden eyes burned in the dim light. "That is not for you to know," she said flatly. "But I need to know," Daniel pushed. "If you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. If you wanted me gone, I'd be gone. You brought me here. You're hiding me from your people. Why?" Her hand tightened on the hilt of her blade. For a moment, Daniel thought she would silence him forever. But instead, she stepped closer, her shadow covering him. "You speak too much," she whispered. Her voice was sharp, but it was trembling. Only slightly, but enough for him to notice. Daniel studied her face as she knelt in front of him. Her helmet covered most of it, but tonight she removed it. For the first time, he saw her without the mask. Her skin was marked with pale scars, glowing faintly under the light. Her features were sharp, alien, but striking. Her golden eyes burned, brighter without the helmet, fierce and unrelenting, but behind that fire was something else. Pain. Daniel's breath caught. He had seen soldiers broken by war, men crushed by battles, but he had never seen someone who carried so much strength and suffering in the same breath. "You," he whispered. "You're not what they say." She stiffened. "What do they say?" "That you're a monster, a demon. Death itself. Walking." Her lips tightened. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, softly, as if the words were dragged out of her against her will, she answered, "They are not wrong." Daniel shook his head. "No, they're wrong. You're more than that." Her eyes flashed. "Do not speak as if you know me." "Then let me know you," he said quietly. The silence stretched between them. His words hung in the air like a challenge. Finally, she leaned back, her gaze sharp but conflicted. "My people do not see me as you do. To them I am not a woman, I am not a life. I am a weapon, forged in war, raised to kill, trained never to question." Her voice grew bitter, her golden eyes darkening. "I have never been called beautiful. Not once. Not by my people. Not by anyone." Daniel's chest tightened. In that moment he understood. His words on the battlefield had done something no weapon ever could. They had pierced through her armor, and that terrified her, because she had faced armies without fear. But now, sitting before one weak human, she felt something she could not control. Something dangerous. Their silence was broken by a sound outside. The slam of a heavy door, the bark of alien voices. The warrior snapped her helmet back on. Her mask returning in an instant, she stood sharply. "They suspect you," she said coldly. "They whisper that I am weak, that I hide you because I have lost my strength." Daniel rose to his feet, panic rising in his chest. "What will they do?" Her voice was steel again. "They will test me. They will make me prove loyalty. And if they do, your blood will be the price." Daniel's heart pounded. "Then why don't you end this now? Why keep me alive if it risks everything?" Her golden eyes locked onto him, burning with something he couldn't name. Anger, confusion, fear, longing. "Because," she whispered, the word dragging from her lips like it weighed more than her armor. "I cannot." Before Daniel could speak, the door burst open. Two alien guards stood there, their blades drawn. "Warrior," one hissed, "the council demands your proof." Tonight, the alien warrior straightened, towering above them. Her blade hummed with deadly power as she stepped forward, her voice cold and commanding. "Then they shall have it." But Daniel saw it, the smallest flicker in her eyes as she glanced back at him before leaving. A flicker not of rage, but of fear, not for herself, for him. And as the door slammed shut, Daniel finally understood. The mask was cracking, and once it shattered, nothing would ever be the same. Shared secrets. The fortress walls were never silent. They breathed with whispers carried by cracks and shadows. Rumors moved faster than soldiers. Rumors that their strongest warrior had grown weak. That she hid a human. That she had forgotten her purpose. Daniel felt it. Every time the door opened, every time alien eyes stared too long, he felt the weight of it pressing closer. And yet in the heart of the storm, he found himself waiting for her. The warrior. She returned that night. Her armor was smeared with dust, her blade stained from trials Daniel hadn't seen. She walked into his chamber without a word, her steps heavy. For the first time, she looked tired, not defeated, not broken, just tired. She removed her helmet slowly, setting it down beside her. The golden eyes that had terrified armies now seemed dimmer, clouded by something deeper. Daniel spoke before he could stop himself. "What did they make you do?" Her gaze snapped to him, sharp and warning. But she didn't answer right away. Instead, she sat on the cold floor across from him. "They wanted proof," she said finally. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the weight beneath it. Proof that I have not lost myself. Proof? Daniel asked. Her eyes darkened. They gave me 3 prisoners. Human soldiers. Daniel's heart stopped. He didn't need to ask what happened next. Her silence said enough. For a long moment, neither spoke. Daniel wanted to hate her. He wanted to curse her, scream at her for the blood on her hands. But when he looked at her face, he didn't see a monster. He saw someone chained just like him, only her chains were invisible, forged by duty and fear. You didn't want to, he whispered. Her jaw tightened. Want has no meaning here. Want is weakness. I am what they made me. Daniel leaned forward. No, that's not all you are. Her eyes flashed, anger sparking. You speak as if you know me. Then let me, he said softly. The chamber fell silent. For the first time since he'd been captured, the air between them wasn't filled with fear. It was filled with something else. She stared at him, her golden eyes unreadable. Then slowly she spoke. When I was young, they took me from my home. I was not raised as a child. I was raised as a weapon. Every scar. She touched the pale marks glowing faintly across her skin. Is a lesson. Every strike, every wound, every victory carved me into what I am. Her voice grew lower, almost bitter. They do not call me by name, only by title. The Blade of Silence, the Warborn. To them, I am not a woman. I am death wrapped in flesh. Daniel swallowed hard. He had heard the stories, every human soldier had. But hearing it from her, seeing the truth in her eyes, was something else entirely. And yet, she continued, her gaze locking onto him. You call me beautiful. Her words were not a question this time. They were a statement, a wound she could not close. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He could have stayed silent. He could have looked away. But he didn't. I call you beautiful, he said slowly, carefully, because you are more than what they made you. They see a weapon. I see strength. Scars don't make you less. They make you real. You fight because you were forced to, but I see the person behind the armor, even if you don't want me to. Her breath caught, so small, so quick. Daniel almost missed it. For a moment, her golden eyes flickered not with fury but with something dangerously close to sorrow. But the moment shattered as the door banged open. 2 alien guards stormed inside, their armor clanging. Their eyes narrowed at Daniel, but their words were for her. Warrior, one barked. The council grows restless. They say you spend too much time with the human. The second guard sneered at Daniel. He should already be dead. Every moment he breathes is shame. The warrior rose in an instant, towering over them. Her blade hummed as she unsheathed it, glowing in the dim chamber. You question me? She growled. The guards faltered. Even they feared her. But one found the courage to answer. You have changed. He spat. Once, you would have killed without thought. Now you protect him. Your mask is cracking, warrior. And when it breaks, you will fall. Her golden eyes blazed. She took a step closer, her blade at the guard's throat. Leave, she said, her voice low and dangerous, or I will show you how much of the mask remains. The guards hesitated only a moment before, retreating, the door slamming shut behind them. Daniel exhaled shakily. They're watching you. They'll turn on you if you keep protecting me. She turned to him slowly, her blade still glowing in her hand. For a moment he wondered if the guards were right, if she would finally end him to prove her strength. But instead she lowered the blade, the glow fading, her voice was quiet, almost broken. They already doubt me. Keeping you alive may destroy me. And yet... She looked at him, and for the first time, Daniel didn't see the alien warrior, the monster, the weapon. He saw someone standing on the edge of 2 worlds, torn between what she was forced to be and what she was beginning to feel. And yet I cannot let you go. Her confession hung in the air, heavier than any blade. Outside the chamber, whispers spread like wildfire. Inside, the walls closed in with danger. But between them, in the fragile silence, something powerful and forbidden had begun to grow. Not trust, not love, not yet. Something far more dangerous. The betrayal. The fortress was alive with whispers. Every corridor Daniel passed, escorted under her watchful gaze, was thick with suspicion. Alien eyes followed him, burning with hatred. But they were not only watching him, they were watching her. The strongest warrior. The one no one dared to challenge, until now. That evening, the council summoned her. The chamber was vast, lit by cold blue fire. The leaders sat in a circle, their armor gleaming with rank and power. The air itself seemed heavy with judgment. Daniel was forced to his knees in the center, guards gripping his arms like iron. The alien warrior entered, her steps echoing across the stone floor. She stood tall, but Daniel noticed something. Her fists clenched too tightly, her breathing slower, controlled. She was preparing herself. The leader at the center spoke, his voice sharp as a blade. "You bring shame, warrior." She said nothing. "You protect this human, you feed him, you hide him in your chambers. Do you deny it?" Her golden eyes flashed, but her voice was calm. "No." A ripple of anger moved through the council. "Then you admit your weakness." "I admit nothing," she said, her voice steady. "I make my own choices." The leader's lips curled. "Then choose now. Prove your loyalty, or lose everything." With a snap of his fingers, the guards dragged Daniel forward. They threw him to the ground before her. His knees slammed into the stone, his head bowed. The leader's voice thundered. "Kill him. Show us you are still one of us. Show us the mask has not broken." The room grew silent, every alien eye fixed on her. Daniel lifted his head slowly, his eyes meeting hers. He saw the storm raging inside her, the battle she fought not with blades, but with herself. She stepped forward, drawing her weapon. The blade hummed, filling the chamber with a low, deadly song. Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to run, to fight, but he was trapped. His only weapon was his voice. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Her eyes locked onto him. For a heartbeat, the mask cracked. He saw fear, sorrow, conflict. Then her face hardened again, her blade rising high. The council watched, hungry for blood. The guards leaned forward, ready to drag Daniel's body away. And then she turned. The blade struck the ground, not Daniel, but the stone floor beside the council leader's chair. Sparks exploded as the weapon dug deep, the sound echoing like thunder. "I will not kill him," she growled. Her voice was low, dangerous. "Not for you. Not for anyone." The chamber erupted in shouts. Some rose to their feet, weapons drawn. Others stared in shock. No one had ever defied the council like this. The leader stood slowly, his eyes blazing. "Then you are a traitor." The word fell like a death sentence. Guards surged forward, weapons raised. Daniel scrambled back, his heart racing. The alien warrior moved like fire unleashed. Her blade cut through the air, sparks flying as she struck the first guard down. Another lunged at her. She spun, her weapon slicing through his armor. The chamber filled with chaos. The council shouted commands. The guards roared, but none could match her fury. Daniel crawled back toward the wall, trying to stay alive as blades clashed around him. He had seen her fight on the battlefield, but this was different. This was not war. This was rebellion, and it was terrifying. At last, silence fell. The floor was littered with broken weapons and groaning guards. The warrior stood tall, her blade dripping with energy, her chest heaving with breath. The council leader glared at her, his face twisted with rage. "You doom yourself," he spat. "You doom us all. This human will be your ruin." She stepped closer, her eyes burning gold. "Maybe, but he is mine." She turned sharply, grabbing Daniel by the arm. "Move." He stumbled to his feet, following her as she dragged him through the chaos, out of the chamber, down the long hallways of the fortress. Alarms began to sound, echoing through the walls. The fortress was turning against them. They reached the hangar, alien ships glowing with strange energy. Guards swarmed from every direction. Daniel's chest tightened. There was no way out. But she didn't slow. She fought like a storm, blades flashing, armor glowing with fury. For every guard that fell, 2 more came. The sound of battle filled the air, drowning out Daniel's thoughts. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon, clumsy and heavy, but he swung it anyway, barely holding off an attacker. The alien warrior glanced back at him, and for the first time, her lips curled into something almost human. Not a smile, something fiercer. Approval. "Fight, human," she growled. "If you fall with me." Daniel tightened his grip. For the first time since the battlefield, he felt something other than fear. Strength. At last, they forced their way to a ship. She slammed her hand against the controls, the vessel roaring to life. Blades clanged against the hull as guards swarmed around them, but the ship rose, shaking, engines blazing. The fortress grew smaller below them. The alarms faded into the distance. Inside the ship, Daniel collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. His arms shook, his body weak. But he was alive. She stood at the controls, her golden eyes fixed ahead. "You defied them," Daniel whispered, his voice hoarse. Her gaze flicked toward him, then back to the stars. "I defied everything," she said. Silence filled the cabin. Daniel knew what this meant. She had turned her back on her people. She had thrown away her rank, her power, her place. For him. And in that silence, he realized something terrifying. They were no longer enemies. They were fugitives together. War and sacrifice. The stars were no longer silent. As their stolen ship cut through the black sky, alarms still echoed in Daniel's mind. The council's fury would not end in the fortress. They would chase, they would hunt, and they would not stop until both he and the warrior were dead. The alien warrior stood at the controls, her armor scarred, her golden eyes burning with focus. She was calm, but Daniel could see it. The tension in her jaw, the tight grip on the controls. She had defied her people, broken their laws, slaughtered their guards. She had chosen him, and now, both of them would pay. The first strike came like thunder. A beam of energy ripped past their ship, lighting the void with fire. Daniel lurched forward as the vessel shook violently. Through the window he saw them, an entire fleet rising from the shadows. Dark ships, hundreds of them, circling, like predators. The council had unleashed their hunters. The warrior's voice was steady, but low. "They will not let us go." Daniel's throat tightened. "Can we outrun them?" Her golden eyes flicked toward him, then back to the stars. "No." The word was heavy, final, but she didn't slow. Instead, her hands danced across the controls, pulling the ship into sharp turns, weaving through enemy fire. Each blast lit the darkness, shaking the vessel, rattling Daniel's bones. He clutched the side of the ship, his heart pounding. He had fought battles before, but never like this. This was not war. This was execution. The first enemy ship closed in, its weapons glowing. The warrior spun their vessel, flipping it with impossible speed. Daniel was thrown against the wall, his vision blurring. The warrior fired. The blast tore through the enemy ship, splitting it into fire and shards. For a heartbeat, Daniel felt hope. But then he saw the rest of the fleet closing in. Dozens, hundreds. "This is impossible," he muttered. The warrior's voice cut through his fear. "Not impossible, only final." Daniel stared at her. Even facing death, she was unshaken, fierce. But then he saw something new in her eyes, something deeper than fury, something human. She was ready to die. The battle raged. The stolen ship shook under constant fire. Panels sparked. Smoke filled. "The cabin!" Alarm screamed. Daniel grabbed a weapon from the wall, stumbling to her side. "What do I do?" he shouted. Her golden eyes locked on him. "Fight!" Another blast rocked the ship, sending him sprawling. He crawled to the weapon controls, pulling the trigger. Bolts of light fired from the ship's cannons, striking an enemy vessel and sending it into flames. Daniel gasped. His hands shook, his body weak. But he was fighting, beside her. And for the first time, he saw her not as a monster, not as a weapon, but as a warrior fighting with him, not against him. But the fleet was endless. Their ship shuddered as a blast ripped through the hull. Alarms blared louder. Sparks rained from the ceiling. "We're hit," Daniel yelled. The warrior didn't flinch. "We hold." Daniel's eyes widened. "Hold? We can't win this." Her voice was calm, almost serene. "Then we die with honor." She turned to him, golden eyes burning. "But not before I protect you." The next blast tore through the cabin, throwing Daniel across the floor. Pain shot through his body. He coughed, struggling to rise. Through blurred vision he saw her, still standing, still fighting, her blade drawn as enemy soldiers stormed through the torn hull. They had boarded. Daniel grabbed the fallen alien weapon, forcing himself to stand. Soldiers poured in, their blades glowing. The warrior moved like lightning, cutting them down one by one. But there were too many. For every soldier she struck, two more came. Daniel swung clumsily, his weapon humming, striking one across the chest. Another slammed him into the wall, but he shoved back, firing into its armor. Blood. Sparks. Fire. The ship was dying, and so were they. Then it happened. A soldier's blade sliced through the air, aimed straight for Daniel's chest. He froze, too slow to stop it. But she was faster. The alien warrior threw herself between them. The blade pierced her side, cutting, deep. Her cry echoed through the cabin, sharp and raw. She struck the soldier down with fury, but her body staggered. Blood, dark and glowing, poured from her wound. "No!" Daniel shouted, rushing to her side. She fell to one knee, her blade still in hand, her golden eyes dimming. Another wave of soldiers advanced, but Daniel stood in front of her, weapon raised. His body shook, but he held the line. "You'll have to go through me," he growled. The soldiers paused, then surged forward. Daniel fought with everything left in him. Every swing, every shot, every cry of rage. He was weak, broken, nothing, compared to them. But he fought because she had saved him, because she had chosen him, because for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to protect something more than himself. The last soldier fell. The cabin was quiet, filled only with smoke and the sound of Daniel's ragged breathing. He turned back to her. She was on the floor, her blood pooling around her, her blade lying at her side. Her golden eyes flickered weakly as she looked at him. "Why?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Why do you call me beautiful, human?" Daniel's chest ached. He dropped to his knees beside her, his hands pressing against her wound, desperate to stop the bleeding. "Because you are," he whispered fiercely. "Not for your scars, not for your strength, but because when the universe wanted you to be a weapon, you chose to be more." Her lips parted, her breath trembling. For a moment her golden eyes softened, shining not with fury but with something far more dangerous. Trust. The ship groaned around them, flames spreading. But Daniel didn't care. His world had narrowed to her, this warrior, this impossible, terrifying, beautiful soul who had chosen him when she didn't have to. And as her eyes closed, her hand weakly grasped his. She whispered one final word. Human. Then the world around them exploded in fire. A new dawn, the fire swallowed the ship. Flames licked across the walls, sparks rained from the ceiling, and the hull groaned as it broke apart. Alarms wailed like dying screams. Daniel held the warrior in his arms, her blood glowing against his hands. The heat was unbearable, smoke choking the air, but he refused to let her go. "Stay with me," he shouted, his voice raw. "Stay with me, please." Her golden eyes flickered weakly, her breath shallow. She had saved him again, and in doing so, she had nearly destroyed herself. The ship shook violently. A final blast ripped through its engines. They were falling. Through the chaos, the warrior's hand tightened around Daniel's arm. Even broken, even bleeding, her strength remained. "Not here," she whispered. Daniel coughed, his eyes stinging from the smoke. "What do you mean?" Her gaze burned through the haze, steady even as her body trembled. Not like this. We do not end like this. Before Daniel could answer, the floor split beneath them. The ship tore apart as it plunged into the atmosphere of a distant world. Everything went black. When Daniel opened his eyes, the world was silent. He was lying in soft earth, the sky above him a strange shade of violet lit by two suns. The air was thick but breathable. Around him, alien trees reached into the sky, their branches glowing faintly as if filled with light. He gasped, pushing himself upright. Pain shot through his body, but he ignored it. "Warrior?" he called hoarsely. No answer. Panic surged through him. He stumbled through the wreckage of the ship, shoving aside burning metal, calling her name again and again. At last, he found her. She lay among the ruins, her armor cracked, her body still. For a moment terror seized him, until her chest rose weakly with breath. Daniel dropped to his knees, relief flooding through him. He pressed his hands against her wounds, whispering desperately, "You're alive. Thank God, you're alive." Her golden eyes opened slowly, dim, but still burning. She looked at him for a long moment, then rasped, "You never give up, do you?" Daniel laughed shakily, tears in his eyes. "Not on you." Days passed. The planet was harsh but alive. Strange fruits hung from the glowing trees. Rivers of silver water cut through the land. It was wild, untouched, unclaimed. Together, Daniel and the warrior survived. She taught him how to track the strange beasts that lurked in the forests. He showed her how to build fire with what they had. At night, they sat beneath the twin suns, their silence no longer heavy with fear, but with something unspoken. One night, as the fire crackled between them, Daniel finally asked, "What happens now?" "Your people, my people. They'll never accept this. Us." Her golden eyes reflected the flames. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly, she removed the last piece of her broken helmet and set it aside. "They call me weapon," she said softly. "They call me death. But you..." Her gaze locked on him. "You call me beautiful." Daniel's chest tightened. He remembered her question on the battlefield, the one that had haunted them both. Why? Why had he said it? He leaned closer, his voice steady now, no longer afraid. "Because you are," he said. "Not for what you were made to be, but for what you chose to be. You chose me. You chose to fight for something greater than war. That's beauty. That's strength. That's you." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she looked at him not as a human, not as an enemy, but as something more, someone who had seen her. Not the armor, not the scars, but her. But peace never lasted. One morning, the sky split with fire. Alien ships descended through the clouds. Her people had found them. The warrior rose to her feet, her blade in hand despite her wounds. Daniel grabbed the weapon he had scavenged, standing beside her. They both knew what this meant. They couldn't run forever. She glanced at him, her golden eyes fierce. "This is where it ends." Daniel shook his head. "No, this is where it begins." The ships landed. Soldiers poured out, blades glowing. The two stood side by side, human and alien. Enemies turned something greater. The leader stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "You betrayed us, warrior. You broke our laws. For him." Her blade hummed with light as she lifted it. "For him," she said, her voice steady. "And I would again." Daniel raised his weapon, his heart steady for the first time. "Then let's show them," he whispered, and together they charged. The battle was fierce. Fire and steel clashed beneath the twin suns. Alien soldiers swarmed, but the warrior cut through them like a storm, Daniel fighting desperately by her side. They bled, they burned, but they stood. For every soldier who struck at him, she shielded him. For every enemy that threatened her, he struck them down. And at last, as the dust cleared, only silence remained. The soldiers lay defeated, the fleet retreated, the leaders fled. Daniel and the warrior stood alone, battered and broken, but alive. As the sun set, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Daniel turned to her. She was covered in scars, her armor ruined, her strength nearly gone. But to him, she had never looked stronger. She looked back at him, her golden eyes blazing softly. "Why do you call me beautiful, human?" she whispered one last time. Daniel smiled, his voice firm. "Because no one in the universe has ever been more." For the first time, her lips curved into a faint smile. Small, fragile, but real. And as the stars rose above them, they stood together on the strange new world. Two exiles, two warriors, two souls who had defied everything for a bond no one else dared to believe in. Enemies no longer, not prisoner and captor, not weapon and soldier, just them. And in that moment, the galaxy felt new, a new dawn.